Hello, photo students. I just wanted to take this opportunity to sort of congratulate you all for accomplishing as much as you have at this stage of the game. Most of you have gotten your cameras and been playing around with them and taking some test shots and even sharing them out with me or with the other students on the discussion board. I just kind of wanted to, wrap up those couple of weeks, but also look forward to the next couple of weeks. I want to really kind of tell you what this class will look like for us since it's mostly online and we won't really see each other in person all that often. That said, if you want to meet with me in person, I left my Fridays open to be able to do that to meet with any of you kind of at any time on Fridays. So please just let me know if you want to meet face to face and we can meet face to face. Also, occasionally over the course of the semester, we'll do some in person workshops that I'll invite you all to. And you can sort of choose to come to those workshops or not choose to come for those workshops, depending on your interest level or even your schedule. I know that you're all really busy with the work and other classes that you're taking. Um, with this first project, I'm going to be asking you to focus on composition. And composition just really means everything that's in the frame. How do you arrange everything that's in the frame? And I want to point out that you get to decide what's in your picture. That's your choice. So that means that you have to be sort of responsible for everything that's in your picture. And I'm going to tell you a bit of advice that I got when I was back in school, and that was everything in the frame will either make your picture better or it'll make it worse. I'm going to say that again because I think it's important to really internalize that. Everything in your frame, everything in your picture, every object, every line, everything will either make your photo better or it will make it worse. There is no sort of neutral part of your frame. There's no object or element in your frame, in your picture that will be neutral and not do anything. It's either going to make it better or it's going to make it worse. And so if you can start to think about your composition in that way, when you take a picture, when you set up your picture and you're looking at what you want to take a picture of, really try to think about what's in there and then maybe think about, making something not in there by moving your camera or getting closer or even physically moving things out of your frame if you want to. Later on, we can talk about how we can digitally move things out of your frame, but for right now, really just concentrate on what's in your frame. I'm going to look on Canvas here with you really quick. Um, and hopefully all of you have looked through this general information and gone through the introduction stuff, taking a quick look at the competencies, the things that we'll be learning about, taking a look at the photo assessment rubric to kind of see how your photos will be assessed by me and by other students. And then this reading about the self portrait was really meant to sort of give you an idea as to how you want to take your self portrait to share with the students. A few of you really took that to heart, and I really appreciate you producing photos that are really high quality and conceptually fun to look at. So as we move into photographic and visual theory here, I really want to call your attention to the idea that it's a week 2 through week 3. So this is a long 2-week process where we will kind of concentrate on not only reading about composition, looking at the presentation about composition, but also reading about Ansel Adams. Um, the tasks I want you to focus on is making your composition PDF, meaning that I want you to take at least 10 pictures and put those 10 pictures on one document for us to look at. There will be an in-progress critique where you can show the pictures that you've taken up to this point, and they really should exemplify the different kinds of composition that I'm talking about in this PDF. Your in-progress critique for week 1 will have at least 5 pictures. If you have all 10, that would be great. If you have 20, that's fine too. But I want you to be able to take at least 5 pictures. The idea with those pictures is that you're kind of taking one really good picture a day. So if you can keep your time frame into taking one really good picture a day, I think you're going to be in good shape. Week 2 would be the final critique, and that's the PDF with 10 pages, all with titled pictures, maybe even 11 if you're going for extra credit. The leading lines is kind of all about taking the lines that you see inside of your composition and pointing them at a focal point. So in this case, Bresson is taking this focal point, which is this guy on the bike, which is, it's not even in focus, right? It's a little blurry, but it becomes the focal point because it's pointed to by this chair rail here. It's pointed to by this line of the road here. Everything, when it comes to a line on this, is leading us to that focal point. So try to think of leading lines when you take your own pictures, just by looking around for things you can use as lines. Chair rails obviously work pretty well for that. Lines on roads work well for that. Sidewalks, bricks, all sorts of things work well for leading lines. But consider your focal point. What do the leading lines point us to? What do those lines lead us to? So in this case, it's the bike. In your case, it might be something else. When I say landscape in this context, I'm talking about the orientation of the photograph itself, meaning that this is horizontal. Landscape and horizontal are synonymous when I'm talking about camera format. I'm not talking about trees and lakes. I'm talking about how this is not a vertical or portrait. So you have a landscape photograph, and in this case, Asnin is taking this photograph of these rabbis because it fits really well with the subject. In this case, a landscape format really fits with the flow of the subject, and you can see that going through here. The focal point is maybe this main rabbi at the podium, and we even have some foreground interest with this guy right here, but it's just this sort of like wave of other rabbis back here that become the reason for that landscape. If you're taking a vertical or a portrait orientation, I really want you to think about why you're taking it. Hopefully it's because your subject is tall or fits into the idea of you turning your camera and taking a vertical orientation picture. This is one of my favorite ones by Lee Friedlander, and it's all about framing. It's looking for boxes or windows that draw a line around your focal point. In this case, it's her, and again, she's not even in sharp focus, but she becomes our focal point because she's framed by this the shadow of this window. You can use a lot of different things to do that. Hula hoops, windows, mirrors, reflections. You can use anything in your environment to frame a subject. You just have to know what your subject is. You just have to know what your focal point is. In this case, we're seeing things happening in the foreground, like with these footsteps or these big machineries that get repeated as we go further into the picture. So we have these feet kind of pulling us back to where these guys are, and we have this machinery that's kind of being reflected here in the middle ground, and then here again in the background, and then here again even in the far background. So how are things in your foreground, or the things that are closest to you, helping to lead an eye back into the depth of the picture? Think about layers, right? Your layers being your foreground, your middle ground, and then your background. And then you might have extreme foreground, and then you might have extreme background. But the idea that you're working with these layers, try to find those layers when you go out and shoot pictures. With your close-up pictures, just get closer. If you think you're close, get even closer. Get as close as you can with your camera to try to make something that is just about the subject. In this case, like, we're uncomfortably close to this lady here. And I think that if you feel uncomfortable when you're getting a close-up picture of a thing, you're probably doing it right. Remember that symmetry means the same on both sides. So if I cut this image in half, I get the idea that I have half the dude over here and the other half of the dude over here, and then a lot of these horizontal things are the same on both sides. Now, certainly not everything is going to be the same on both sides. Say this bag introduces some amount of asymmetry, and even these buildings produce some amount of asymmetry, meaning that this building is not the same as this building, but this is a building, and this is a building. And also something interesting is happening here where you see these sort of this one-point perspective lines here, all kind of pointing at the middle, or the just below the middle of the photograph, which is right here. So our subject, or our focal point, really is being the subject and the focal point very deliberately by using symmetry. When you take your picture, your symmetrical picture, I should look at it and the first thing I should think about is, oh, it's symmetrical. And if I don't think that at first, you're probably going to need to reshoot that picture. This one, it's about the rule of thirds, the Dorothea Lange, which is wonderful, but it's also got some leading lines too, right? These trials make leading lines that go back to where this house is, but it's also using the rule of thirds, being that if we separate the camera into 9 little squares, we can see that the top line here follows along kind of with the horizon line there, and then this vertical thirds line here will intersect at where the house is. When you take yours, just think about where these boxes are, where these 9 boxes are, and try to put things like focal points into these intersections, right? Try to follow along with these lines in the best way that you can. Visual weight can be shown by keeping your frame very simple. So if you just have a couple of elements in your frame, like in this case by Louis Baltz, you have just, I don't know, just like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main elements in this picture. And it makes it so that you can really focus on the asymmetry of it, meaning that you have this big dark box right here and then none on this side, right? So like visually, it's starting to balance out to the right, and then maybe with some of this interest we have here on the ground, it becomes to balances out the other way. Pay attention to this. Minimize the shapes and cut out the distractions. I mean, like that's my best advice to you in making visual weight appear on your composition. Just keep it as simple as you can. Remember, nothing in your frame will ever be neutral. So make sure that you're deciding to put things in your frame or deciding to take things out. This is kind of the opposite, right? This is working the frame. This is making as much in your frame as you possibly can. And in this case, I mean, there's a lot of shapes going on, a lot of different colors, a lot of different lines. In this work the frame, try to make every single inch of your photograph have something in it, right? So there's no dead space at all. Keep in mind that I'm looking for at least 10 pictures when you're done, and you need to exemplify each of these compositional techniques, meaning I should be able to look at any of these pictures without even a label, even though I do want you to label them, and be able to say, oh, that's framing, or oh, she's using leading lines. I should be able to see that pretty easily. I want you to present a 10-page document with a photograph on each page, much in the same way that this document was presented to you just now. You should use this presentation as kind of an example. There is extra credit if you want to include an 11th photo that sort of takes some of those rules and deliberately breaks those rules. And I'd want you to talk about how you did that and why you did that. Because there are things in photography that we can do, right? But we should have a reason why we're doing it. A reason that's dictated by what we're taking a picture of, or like the subject matter itself should give us a reason to compose the picture the way that we're composing it. So again, your deadlines are in week 1, you have the in-progress critique with at least 5 pictures. If you have all 10, that's great. And then in week 2, we have the final critique, and that should be a PDF with 10 pages, and all of the pictures are titled so that we know which one you're trying to do. I would use the in-progress critique to really help you get to that final critique. If you have something in your in-progress critique and I look at it, or somebody else looks at it and says, hey, I really don't think that this is a very good picture for this compositional technique because of this and this and this, then don't submit that picture to your final. Take that picture out and replace it with another picture that you took, or go out and take more pictures to try to really make that compositional element the forefront or to exemplified by that photograph. If I look at what you're making and the picture you submitted for framing doesn't have any amount of framing on it, I'll probably say that to you, and that's your indication to say, well, I better take another picture, or maybe I need to ask Mr. Wheeler to get a better idea of what framing means, right? Which is perfectly fine. I mean, we're learning through this together, and I think that if you need to ask a question, like you don't totally understand something, And if you submit a picture that is like, this is what I think framing is, and I say, well, that's not exactly what I meant. I want you to know that, like, I want you to understand that, and therefore, when you submit a picture that might not go along with what I expected, I'll let you know. But mostly just so you can take another picture, right? Or you can find another picture so that you have like a deep understanding as to what that compositional element is. So please use the in-progress critique to help you in doing the final critique. I'm also going to point out in this case, I'm not asking you to change any of your camera settings. If you shoot all in automatic for this assignment, that's perfectly fine. I'm just looking for your ability to use composition in these photographs. Also, I expect you all to be using a DSLR camera. Please don't send, at this point, any phone pictures or any like even point and click pictures. I want you to send me pictures you made with a DSLR camera. I hope that makes sense to you all. And if you have any questions about that or any concerns, or you're a little worried about something, email me, and I'll email you right back. And if you want to meet in person, please let me know too. I left my schedule open Fridays just for you guys. So please send me an email if you want to meet on Fridays, or if you just want to ask a quick question, or if you just need clarification, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All right, well, good luck. I really look forward to seeing what some of these pictures turn out like. And have a great, I think we're, in week 3 already. So have a great week 3. Bye.